Hello, this is Dale Matthews with Inside News, and I'm joined by Mike Jones and Bill Hunker. Hello, Mike. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Dale.
Good evening.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that we know about Simon Hare. That's one of the first things we're going to talk about. Then we're going to talk about some things we know about Simon Hare. That's the second thing we're going to talk about. And then some of the things we know about Bill Hunker. You have to say his name like that. And he's going to talk to us about some of the videos that we showed last night, and then we're going to show some more videos. So, good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So as we put out there in our promo, we wanted you to know some of the things that are happening with Simon Hare and the county commissioners. Right at the very top is here's a video from the little back room. Mike, go ahead.
Okay.
My schedule is that I'm looking for an inpatient facility. My goal is to do it between January 10th and February 7th. So, being that there's 4 weeks that I will not be available, I think it's really appropriate to pick a different person.
So you wouldn't have any problem if Commissioner Walker would be the chair and serve as vice chair?
I would be happy with that. That would be great. It will be at least that duration of time, and possibly longer or different, depending on where I can get in.
Yeah.
But that's my goal, and then, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
I'm retaining my position on the ONC as vice president, and we'll continue to do that. There's a meeting on Thursday and Friday, and I'll be attending those. My transportation is for the duration. Kelly Menty Morris from Klamath County got elected, and Colleen Roberts from Jackson County. And those are two options for me for transportation for the remainder of the year. Their appointment is for a year, expiring in December. So it will be a very fluid opportunity to participate in this meeting.
Well, that segues into the other situation as far as liaisonships and that kind of stuff. I mean, yesterday was the managers meeting, whatever the official name of that is. I went, yeah. Nobody said it, but there is a concern that with the liaison situation of Commissioner Hare being the liaison. Would you have any problems of saying, if we took a day, I'm to take an arbitrary date, that for the next 90 days, you just suspend the liaison relationship?
I think what I'd like to do is have a discussion with the departments that I'm a liaison to. There are certain things in the hopper that I don't want to let go of it's in Josephine County's best interest that we maintain continuity, and I think on particular issues that I'm dealing with. I'm thinking of wildfire elements and Harvey Act. Those are main things that are probably pretty important. Other stuff, I'm happy to relinquish the responsibility for continuity and certain things. So I can have that done by the end of the week and provide a list to the board of responsibilities that I think would be best served by somebody else. And I can leave it up to you two to determine, and that manager. I think I'd like to include them in that discussion. But let's hold off until the end of the week, and I'll have a list done of what would work, what's been worked out with the manager, everybody's best interest, issues, and such. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
okay.
Makes sense.
I don't know, broad.
Okay, the other question I have is the on-call, if you will be available.
It'll be
just to alternate between the two of us on the on-call, and that way. So just that.
Yeah.
February or what? I'm on call this week, and so after this week, I think it's just fine to.
Okay. So through mid-February, or?
Yeah.
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with saying that for the next 90 days, because that is a date certain. Yeah, from March, so the 1st of April. It goes back to whatever might be the norm or whatever.
And that covers the time frame that, regardless of when you go in or when you come back or whatever. Is that okay? Does that work? I mean, it's not me, but
if you don't mind, I'll give you the date, because I have there's another element that's an influential factor in that, and so I'll have a date certain of it may not be April 1st. It could be April 15th or thereabouts. But it's the general time frame where, yeah, that makes sense. That somebody else should be responsible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess he's doing a lot of dictating of the terms, isn't he?
He is that. He doesn't want to give up some of these liaisons. Bill, what do you think?
I guess
Well,
don't drink.
that's kind of new. That's kind of new to me. I'm kind of interested to just see what's going on there. There obviously had been some sort of feeling about or discussion that they were going to clip his wings a little bit, and it's interesting to see kind of how that's being danced through.
It's a real good point, Bill, because since they've only met this one time and they've been gone for 2 weeks, when did that discussion take place? Because if there was a discussion, it was illegal. And they've been criticized by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission for having meetings in private where the people are left out. They should be discussing these things in public, not deciding among themselves and not doing it through that secretary you saw in the back, which is why Lane County got in so much trouble. And their initial fine, they talked it down, was $1 million, as I understood, because they were doing county business through a cutout, which was the secretary. That's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's obviously that didn't happen in that meeting.
No, it didn't. So, Mike, any more about that one, bud?
Well, I think considering what happened today, what happened today must have been quite a shock for Simon Hare, because he's under the impression in this situation that he's going to be the vice chair and everything's hunky-dory in that department.
So I'll do the lead into that. Thank you.
Oh.
We've got another tape here with 3 clips in it. The first one's from early in December, where the county commissioners got together, quite rightly, this is what they're supposed to do, and they talked about who was going to be the new chair of the Board of County Commissioners, because it wasn't probably going to be Keith Heck again, and who would be the vice chair. And the tradition is that the vice chair moves up to chair, and the chair moves back to the nothing, right? And that's generally the way that it works. Well, Simon Hare made it very clear, as you'll see in the tape, that he'd like to be the new chair. He made this announcement on the very same day that he went up to Eugene and went to the strip joint and got thrown in jail. So one can only think, well, perhaps just desserts would be that you don't get to be the chair anymore. But they're required by law. They took an oath. It's state law. It's county law. They took an oath of office. They must discuss it in front of the people. Well, then they come back and they find, guess what? He's not going to be the chair. Oh, when did you have that meeting, open public meeting, to discuss that? And then when he went into today's weekly business session, he found out something else. We'll do the lead into that, but first, here's Simon Hare saying when people still thought maybe he was a legitimate leader in this area, here's Simon Hare saying what he wants to do on the day that he was arrested before he went up to Eugene. Go ahead, first part.
I'd also talked to the mayor about structuring an opportunity to sit down with the mayor, the manager, and the president of the council. I said I would suggest that be the chair. We haven't had a discussion about your tenure and in the transition of that position for 2016. I think we had a year ago, and I have every interest in pursuing that position for the board if that's possible. But I wouldn't the chair of the board. So that's something. No, I could just. I think there's a couple of positives as to why that might not be people who are seeking re-election. Historically, we tried to facilitate around people who are seeking election being the chair position.
I mean, my position is on January 2nd, I'm done.
Okay. Then January 2nd, I don't want it.
Yeah. All right, that's all that.
I didn't know when it was in January, but that sounds.
But that's our first. Well, the
No,
fourth is
the second is Saturday, so the fourth.
Well, the fourth is on Monday. You guys won't do an appointment until Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay,
Six.
Fine. Then you two want to discuss who's going to be vice chair.
Well, I don't see any problem. Just continuation, just for the sake of the ease of.
Are you nominating me to vice chair?
Acquiesced and unanimous all around?
Yeah.
I don't have any objection to that.
Okay. I don't either. I think that's fine.
That's fine. So we can put that on our agenda for the 6th.
I will have it ready.
Those are the major things.
Okay.
Okay, so in that case, Simon was going to be the chair, Cheryl was going to be the vice chair, and Keith Eck was going to be the nothing. They all know, and Wally Hicks was in the room on this next clip. They all know about ORS, Oregon Revised Statute 203-240, which says, it doesn't say we suggest that you pick your chair at your first meeting. It says you shall. And that's in Oregon state law. It's in our county charter, which is odd. It's in both, but somebody thought it was very important. Why? I don't know. But it's in both the state constitution and in our charter. And the last time that they had that they ran into this situation, the legal counsel, the previous legal counsel, had come in and told them individually, you must pick your chair at the first meeting. And then it looked.
Is
Go
there
ahead.
a stipulation about public meeting or only first meeting period?
Yeah, not an executive session. Their first regular meeting. I'm sorry, their first regular meeting. They must do it then.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be a public meeting.
It does have to be. It does have to be a public meeting because they meet in a quorum, right?
Right.
And then when it looked like they were going to have the meeting anyway, he came to that meeting, and he told them on the record, on camera, you must not have this meeting. This meeting will be illegal. You are required by the law to do what the law says. You swore an oath of office that you would do this. And they had the meeting anyway. So that's the layup for this next thing, where Wally Hicks is in the room. They are having an illegal meeting. Now, we all know that they make their choices before they go to the weekly business session, and that's largely ceremonial. So I got up today and I told them about that. You're not going to see me. You don't need to see me. But this next meeting, keep in mind, everything happening at this next meeting, everything is illegal. Go ahead.
We have the matter appointed chair and vice chair for the board of commissioners. That order was in the agenda packet, or the board packet for this morning.
I thought that was on the agenda for tomorrow.
It is. I actually wanted to address that as well. I think historically, my schedule is that I'm looking for an inpatient facility. My goal is to do it between January 10th and February 7th. So, being that there's 4 weeks that I will not be available, I think it's really appropriate to pick a different person.
So you wouldn't have any problem if Commissioner Walker would be the chair and serve as vice chair?
I would be happy with that. That would be great.
Okay.
So what's the controversy? The controversy is that it already said on the agenda before they had this meeting, this illegal meeting, that Cheryl was going to be the new chair. Wait a minute. Why? We saw the first one where Simon's going to be the new chair. And then suddenly, on the agenda for Wednesday, today, it says Cheryl's going to be the new chair. At what open public meeting did these guys, who break the law all the time, what open public meeting did they decide that? I go to all their meetings. They didn't do it in an open public meeting. They did it by talking to each other. And that's illegal. So this was an illegal meeting about an illegal act. They can't help themselves. Now, whether you think Simon deserves this or not is not the point. They should not be acting illegally. Now, so you saw that was yesterday. So we go into today's meeting, and who's going to be the chair? Cheryl. And who's going to be the vice chair? Simon. Now, let's watch what happened today.
We have the only administrative item is the approval of order number 2016-001, and that's the approval of the chair and vice chair for the Board of Commissioners for 2016. And the position calls for Commissioner Walker to be seated as the chair and myself as the vice chair. Any questions, comments from anyone on this?
Look at Simon.
This is your last opportunity.
I know, it just scares me up too.
He's looking at me.
Vice chair, I don't know if I need to.
No, remember? Yeah. Any discussion? Okay, good.
Well, there you have it.
Yes. Well, and that's what you get when you're the low man on the totem pole.
The thing is, they're deciding this out of presence of the public. It's illegal. Look, and the other thing is, which I found kind of dismaying, there were a lot of people in that room. Mike was not in the room, okay? And neither was Bill. But there were a lot of people in that room. And afterwards, I said to a number of people, so who's the chair and who's the vice chair? Even the Courier got it wrong. The Courier put on the front page today that Simon Hare is the new vice chair. No, he's not. Now, usually I like us to be first, and we're still going to be first because they don't come out till tomorrow. But I called the Courier and I said, you know, you got this detail wrong. People are going to think Simon's, because they pick up the newspaper and they might believe it if they read it in the Courier. They might. I don't think they should, but they might. He's not the vice chair.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, well.
Nobody in that room, I have not talked to a single person in that room who heard it right. Nobody got it. We did. But so the bottom line is, if you want to know who's breaking the law and who's not, come here. If you want to know what actually happened, come here. If you don't care, listen to Keijo.
Dale,
Yeah.
what was actually said by Simon at that point? I couldn't hear the audio. Did Simon say something to Heck? And
Yeah.
what was the exchange there?
Very difficult, this audio, and Simon has said many times he knows he's speaking at a low level. I gave you the best backroom audio that I could, too. He said, the very last thing he said was, well, okay. I may be paraphrasing.
Yeah,
but that's
I think
what
he
the
was
result
he was just caving in because he understands that he's really not in a position to to be forceful right now, which just makes my point over again that I made last night, is that this guy is in a diminished capacity on a number of levels. How could he possibly serve on this board effectively? He's going to be, boy. I could use a street term here as what he's going to be to these other people, but I won't.
Yeah, I think we know what that term is, but what I'm mostly concerned about is not Simon being treated unfairly, although really I don't like anybody being treated unfairly, is that in doing this they had to act illegally. And they're just used to doing that. And so not even another commissioner can call them on that. Nobody does. And the other thing about the people in this room, sorry, I love many of the people in that room, you didn't even pay attention. You didn't know what was happening. So what, we're really the only ones who know? Really?
And I'll tell you, Dale, I'm not at all concerned about the mistreatment of Simon Hare.
Okay.
What I am concerned with is the other people that are serving on the same board as him being able to steamroller over his objections to get what they want done, because he is I mean, you saw how easily he acquiesced to that, and we've seen knockdown drag out fights from him before on policy, and and you didn't see that here. So how is this guy going to be able to go forward being forceful about things that he feels strongly about, or that may even be good for the county? We're not going to be able to count on that from Simon Hare. He has to go.
Yes, I agree with you. Now, what we started... Go ahead.
In the meeting, Dale, did he Simon look out and see a sea of people who were about to castigate him in the public time?
Oh yeah.
Did he? So he knew there was no sense in opening his mouth.
The only person in that audience that I know of that was going like, what the heck's going on here, was me. And I think most of the other people were going, it's what you deserve. It may well
Yeah.
be, but this is not the right way to do things. Yeah, I think you're
Wow.
right.
Wow.
Now, Mike, he's mortally wounded. Mortally wounded.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, we started something last night, and we started playing back some video when the commissioners were in the little back room, and they were kicking off, they were doing stage 2 of Levy 2016. They're going to claim, oh, no, this wasn't commissioner originated. Well, it's going to be really hard to get out of that now. And Simon Hare had said, well, I spoke up strongly against it. No, you didn't, because people have seen the tape. See, this tape future-proofs you. They can't lie to you if you see them. Not what we're saying. Forget about what we're saying. Well, please don't forget what you're saying, what we're saying. But the point is, if you see it in their own words, then you know, except for Wally Hicks, the legal counsel, you know it's real if you see it, right? And he'll deny that it's real. So he's really gone over to the other side. I don't understand it. What we did is we started showing him some stuff. Well, we got a great email from some guy. Who was that guy, Mike? Some guy that seems to know what he's talking about. Bill Hunker. And so Bill wanted to come on and explain to people. We're not going to play all that tape over again, but Bill wanted to talk to us about some of the things that he saw that were, as the sheriff says about Bill, they were myths. They were fallacies. They were just not true. So, Bill, it's your show for now. You've got 30 seconds.
What a setup. The real gist of what I felt last night was how much lack of information there is, how much, not just misinformation, but the lack of information that I've followed this fairly closely, and there are several things I have absolutely never heard a figure or a note on. And then when we got into the DA, and I was thinking back, what went on there? And I was at the budget meeting when the DA asked for extra help this last time. They gave him about $165,000, is my memory, and which was for an assistant. All right, but then I thought, all right, if that's the case, and the state funds the DA's office, we evidently don't know how much. Now, I wouldn't believe that the state, when they see a levy go down, say, well, jerk more money out of the DA's office because they just lost in a levy. So somehow I don't understand what's going on with that. I've heard several times that the $25,000 that the county gives to the DA's office, it actually goes to his personal salary. I don't know if that's true. Maybe it goes just to the office. But these are the things. I came up with far more questions out of this whole thing, and that all stemmed, of course, from saying, well, let's take little bitty pieces here and hold them in some sort of order so we can get something out of our smorgasbord. But if you take all these pieces, you can't just move them around willy-nilly, or what the past has said is you won't have a public service entity that works. You'll have some entity that is overblown and not doing what they should, and if they're doing what they should, there's no follow-up. So I said, okay, if that's the case, then somehow these jail beds are a real important part, because you get more deputies. If we're asking the deputies to do their job, hopefully they're finding people and bringing them in for crimes and so forth. But we say, oh, we don't have enough jail beds. And I'm thinking, I talked with Bill Landis last summer, and we were talking about the 30 extra jail beds that the water tax ended up making available. And he said, I said, do you use those? What happens with those? He says, I can show you. Rarely do we go over 30, but he says, I have 30 in my churn all the time. And he says, I'd be glad to show you my daily numbers. He says they run 24 to 28 pretty consistently. That doesn't mean he was telling me he picked up 24 to 28 people a day, but in the churn of getting them in and getting them out, he has about 30 beds. So they're not needing extra beds in his mind for what they're doing in the city. So I said, all right, where does that leave us? That takes us over to the sheriff, who then watches his count, evidently, daily, I would imagine, go up and down as people get released and people come in. And he says, okay, guys, we've got a full jail today. Nobody go out. We don't have any place we can put them. Oh, tomorrow we've got 3 places. We'll send some. I mean, I don't know what goes on there with whether he's pulling back and forth. And then I'm saying, well, okay, we have 30 beds that go to the city. We have 30 beds that I've always heard are federal beds. I know nothing about that. I've never heard a figure for money. I've never heard a figure whether they actually hold those and use them. But we have 30 federal beds. All right, that leaves 70 beds left over. That's being used, I'm assuming, by those people who come in, await trial, go to trial, get sentenced, and spend their time in jail for their sentence if it's under 365 days a year, because we know that if it's over a sentence of over 365 days, they go off to a state prison. So that begins to happen, and I say, all right, there must be a churn there. Who's creating that churn? Well, that now takes me over to the DA's office, who says, well, you know, there's nothing I can do about it. The guy came in, I've got a mandatory sentence, I'll give the full sentence, and we keep that 70 just about filled all the time. Now, does he back off or change his sentences if our jail gets filled? I've never heard a word about that. That then brings me, and this is the point that I was working with months ago, that the jail was overbuilt in 2000, far more than any other jail in Oregon at that time per capita. But they've never used it all, and they don't use it all now. It's 262 beds. We're slated in the. You know, I went and looked at the jail statistics in Oregon for 2014. So we're talking about recent statistics. But in 2014, we're at 130. So that gives us our extra 70. And I'm looking at the numbers and saying, all right, if we have jail beds, why do we have more jail beds per capita being used in our county than 2/3 of the people who are our size or larger? It's a little unfair. It's you know, there's a little bit of apples and Macintosh apples and other kinds of apples. The apples aren't all the same here that we're looking at, but you try to get the same amount of pressure in a system by population, and assuming that other things are equal. So you look at people your size or larger to say, what are they doing? Well, in our state, we have let's say 2, 4, 6, 8. There's 8 counties that have jail beds, and out of those 8, 2 are at maximum, and they are less than we have per capita. But they're at maximum. They can't do anything about it. We could open more jail beds, providing we had money, but so could all these others, and they don't. They have the jail beds, but for some reason they are working at a generally more efficient level. So I'm sitting here with lots of questions and said, hey guys, why don't you go out and find all the answers for us? And then all of a sudden you call.
And Bill had sent us a chart. Bill, are you saying that on this chart here, that this is currently without extra funding beyond you know, what the city is paying for their 30 beds, but
this is 2014
you know, without
numbers.
Okay,
and we're the red bar.
Yeah. So yeah. And I just pulled out so you can see us clearly. The 2 green bars are the 2 counties that they're using their capacity. What they have for beds, they're actually using. And then you go down to places like, well, here's the most outstanding one. There's 820 beds built in Marion County. They're using 415 of those beds in 2014. And that brings their level to the 129 in Marion County. Marion County has the room. They evidently don't have the money, but look what they've done. They've said, listen, we don't have the money. We can't open all our beds. We're going to have to pull it down to a 1.29 per thousand population. Now, they don't say that. They just do whatever the way their jail is built and so forth, but they're able to make their criminal justice system function at 1.29 beds per thousand. We, who are having the same kind of difficulty with our funding and everything. We're not utilizing jail because we can't afford it. But we've decided that one is the best we can do to handle our particular situation. Maybe it is. There's again a question where all that those numbers come from and how all that happens. Between the four or so entities, that is the question. And after your show the other night, I guess that was last night actually, I came away saying, boy, lots of questions. Where are the answers?
Mm. Yeah, you know what? I have a question. If we are we're using more beds per capita than generally a lot of these other counties in here, then why is it that we don't have enough money to fund the jail beds that the city needs without the tax?
I don't know. That's the issue. We've got to look at either sentencing. Maybe there's a whole slew of very small crimes that are going on that they mandate a 30, 60, 90 day. And maybe they're just crowding with a churn constantly to use those 70 beds. I can't imagine that we've filled those 70 beds with 9-month sentences. You know, I don't see where we have that all filled. I think there's got to be this churn. Well, if we got that churn, then I'm looking at why are we giving short sentences? Well, they're not very big crimes. You know, I'm assuming that. I'm assuming that our judges say, just a minute, we've got to cut down on the serious crime here. We send these people away for a while, try to teach them a lesson. But if you don't have serious crime, you end up saying, well, you know, best I can do is give him 60 days, and out he comes, and maybe he's back again in another 60 days. But somehow we're using that churn up in those beds that are available some way. I don't have answers.
So let me ask you. I'm sorry.
Just one second. I wanted to say something to our viewers. Look, there's a possibility that there's somebody out there that's viewing this that has all these answers. More likely is you have almost as many questions as we do. We're three people who do care about this, and we've talked with the sheriff, and we've talked with the police chief, and we've talked with commissioners, and we've gone to all the meetings, and we still don't have answers. Why don't we have answers? If they're asking us for money, and we have no answers at all to some of these things, where's the bottleneck in the information?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's as we say so many times, purposefully vague, and you know, I'm just hate to belabor this point here. If the chief of the Grants Pass Police Department is rotating 24, 25 people in and out every day, then he's not using the 30 beds that they're paying for. So what is it that the city is entitled to just generically without adding the water and sewer tax on? Because the water and sewer tax is billed as, hey, we are taking so many people there that we need this extra money. So what is it that our taxes, you know, entitle us to in incarcerating people from the city of Grants Pass without the tax?
Real good question. I think the only thing we could go back to at this point, Mike, is what historically have we had as kind of our norm numbers. And in 12 and so forth, about the highest that I have seen that was budgeted out was 160 beds. They, you know, we try and run a place with 160 beds, and maybe there is when we lost beds down to 130 or 100, they ramped it back up to 130. But 130 has also tended to be the place that we've bounced around to. As you remember in the article from 2007. They were saying we're going to have to cut the jail beds from 130, this is 2007, down to, what was it, 30? I think they said, oh, terrible, terrible times. But they were not quoting 160 or 180. I have talked with people who remember there being 180s now and again, but pretty regularly, and occasionally on a bad weekend, I guess, up to 200 back in the day. But it was never scheduled or budgeted for over 180. But in 2007, in the Courier, it was 130 beds, and we'll have to cut it down to 30. So 130 beds in 2007 seemed what was going on.
When I first got started with looking at, sorry, there's a delay, and it seems like we're being rude to each other. We're not. Okay. When I first started looking into county government, I came here. I wasn't going to look into county government. I mean, it's boring, right? And so I was just looking at the television stuff. Just what are they doing for public access? Because I thought, well, I can volunteer. And then I got together with Sandy Casanelli, who brought over some figures, and I thought, maybe she's just got some trouble looking at spreadsheets because it's got to be obvious. And we're looking at these numbers, and the numbers weren't adding up. I mean, they weren't adding up. Not in some advanced mathematics. They simply weren't adding. And then when you went from one column to the next, it was real obvious what it should be, and instead of being 7, it was like 11. What? How's that possible? Somebody had gone in and had changed the formula so that they weren't giving legitimate numbers. Really? I mean, I thought there was something wrong with her. There wasn't anything wrong with her. She had her finger right on this. And what I found since then is that there are plenty of times people will say, well, I really don't know what to say because I don't know all the facts. You know what? None of us know all the facts, even though we're trying to find them.
Yeah.
The numbers don't add up.
Yeah. And you know, I had to be amused last night when you played the clip of Walker saying, well, let's go back to 12. That was a pretty good, solid base year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. You know, okay, let's go back to 12. They were screaming and hollering. That was terrible.
Yes,
and we're not that far off from 12 right now. You know, our numbers both, and I think, well, I'd have to double check, but I think that we're not even significantly up at all in the crimes and everything from 12.
We've got stories where they're actually
13,
saying,
but
sorry. We've got stories where they're actually saying we may have to close the jail down. We've got one patrolman. We may have no patrolman. This is what they were saying. Yeah. We're going to play back some of those for you. What we're trying to do is get you ready for the worst that they can throw at us. And the reason why is because the citizens have already said several times, more than the Courier says, that we don't want to do this, so we don't trust you, that we're not believing what you're telling us, that we've done that cost-benefit analysis, and no thank you. They're going to trot out everything they can do because Cheryl's legacy shopping now. This is my opinion. Mike?
Well, they're laying 10, shooting 11 right now.
Wow, I don't know that gambling talk.
That's a golfing term.
Big guys.
No, that's a strip joint talk. Laying 10, shooting 11. I got you.
Yes.
In the Old West.
Well, we've got some footage after Mike's done. Mike will speak, and then we'll show some more footage. Go, Mike. Speak.
Okay. So how is it that Lane County, it's a very populous county, there's probably a lot going on there. I know they've got strip joints and drunk people. And they're at 1.02 jail population per thousand, and we are, 1.57. That seems to be a huge difference. I mean, are we just a bunch of degenerates down here, or what's going on with that? Is this a problem of methodology of law enforcement method, or what is this?
You know, I don't have...
Bill, and how can we be putting more people away when the sheriff and Levy supporters keep saying we're not reporting crime because we don't have enough people? So then why are we ending up with more people in jail if we're not reporting it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, my answer, just historically, Mike and Dale, is the why, is we got very used to a lot of money falling on us every year for absolutely no work.
Right.
It just year after year. The norm, they set their baseline from that. They set what they do to burn that up, and that's what they consider as normal. And so to say, no, we can't have a new normal, that was always our normal. Well, that was back in Fantasyland. You know, when 2008 came along, everybody took a hit. And the government didn't want to. They're hollering and screaming now. We don't want to take a hit. We want to go back to before 2008 and get those numbers again. That's our goal. We don't. None of us can get to go back there. You know, those days are gone, guys.
Instead of playing more video, we're not going to have time for that tonight. But instead of doing that, I wanted to point out and get your opinion, guys. What I believe is the Achilles heel, the fatal flaw in this project. And that is, what they're saying is that we're going to take 4 different little levies and we're going to replace this money over here for patrols with money that comes in from the taxpayers. Then we're going to use that patrols money and put that somewhere else. Really? Where? And then we're going to use this money and replace that money that's already being put into it, and we're going to take that money out and put that somewhere else. Yeah. This is just the same that they've been talking about, except it's just a little trickier.
It's a name game.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Corruption.
You know, we are not going to be fooled by this. We're not going to be fooled by this. This is the shell game, except now you got 4 shells instead of 3. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So why don't you two fellows sum it up, and I'll just listen in admiration.
I agree with everything that's been said here tonight, except for everything that Dale said.
And you,
That's
Bill?
my summation.
Bill, do you want to come on the show ever again? What's your feeling?
Thank you so much, Mike.
Well, we thank you for watching this show. The only power that citizens have, there's the court of public opinion. Okay, that's all that we have. You're not going to get it from a court. You saw what happened in the courtroom here. You're certainly not going to get it from the state. Okay, so the only power that we have is to be informed and then to say no. Even the Grants Pass City voters, who always could be counted on to say yes, they said no. 80% said no. Okay, that's what I talked about at tonight's city council meeting, Grants Pass City Council meeting. So we've got many more stories to tell you, and we'll tell you as often as we can, and as long as you're informed and you're telling your neighbors about this, then we're all future-proofing ourselves. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Good night.